All right, folks, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. Happy Monday. I hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. We got a great show for you lined up. We're going to talk about the dangers of AI. We can have this conversation in many different ways, but we're going to start out by having it over the topic of universal basic income and whether or not we can stop that from happening. Of course, if the robots take all of our jobs, how are we going to argue against it? And it may be completely futile to even attempt to do such a thing. But I've noticed on X, there's this trend, and really just widely all across the digital landscape, more and more people are talking about it. Specifically, is Elon Musk talking about how universal basic income, in fact, high universal basic income is coming, and it's unavoidable, and the robots are all going to take our jobs. What does that mean in terms of the human condition? All of us, for generations, you have to work if you're going to eat. You have to do something with your life. What will this look like? I don't know, but we're going to talk about it. Also, is the Strait of Hormuz open, or is it closed, or is it open, or is it closed? I don't know. This journalist, actually, I'm sick and tired of writing headlines about how, yay, the war is over. Maybe we'll actually get to that point here close. President Trump mentioned earlier on Truth Social that there's going to be a deal, but it's exhausting. And in the meantime, in the background, people are making bukus of money, buying low, selling high, shorting oil, and I'm pretty much exhausted with it all. We're going to talk about that, much, much more. Rob Spencer is with me today, my co-host. The show starts now.
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, folks, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. As always, we're broadcasting live from the state of Arkansas here on LFA TV. Wherever you're watching, we ask you to like, share, and subscribe. Do all of the things. And Rob is with me. Rob, how you doing, sir?
Paul, it is an honor to be with you in studio, as always, when I can get here. Excited to be here. It's a busy Monday for me. As you can imagine, it's springtime in real estate, so it gets a little cray-cray on Monday. Yeah, we want to know, is the war over? Is it not over? Will they, won't they? Kind of thing. And it's just, it's exhausting at this point. It's not funny, but it's just exhausting at this point. And, so many idiots on the left believe that Donald Trump is specifically doing this for market manipulation. And I just think that he cares too. I think his ego is too great to and knows that this is not good. It doesn't look good. How am I trying to say it? Like his reputation as a deal maker is taking a hit right now. And so I think that I believe that he would much rather there be a resolution and he gets to ride that victory rather than this back and forth craziness.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there.
Yeah,
for sure.
AI is scary. I'm looking forward to talking about that stuff too.
Yeah, so we're going to get into it. We'll get into the conversation about Iran as well here in just a minute. But I wanted to start with this AI situation. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but obviously as a journalist, I'm a news hound, so I'm constantly looking at stories and comments, and you can kind of tell where there's trends or things are being pushed in a certain direction. But recently, universal basic income has come up. I'm seeing it everywhere, whether it's old podcasts being posted or whether it's recent comments. I'm seeing it everywhere. And so I have often said, as a matter of fact, I warned some of my friends in a think tank here in Arkansas about a year ago. I sat down with them and we were talking about universal basic income, and they're traditional on the right, free market type of guys, and I'm like, well, how do you argue against it? How in the world do you make the argument against universal basic income if AI does in fact take all of your jobs, and not just your surgeons with robotic arms or your lawyers or your doctors, but what if it eventually comes because the robots? What if it eventually comes for plumbers? What if it eventually comes for electricians and that sort of thing? Which I think it will. Even though they may be the last to go, what are you actually going to do? And so I noticed this. Let me throw this up here on the screen. Here is Elon Musk talking about universal basic income. And my This is super odd. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my set. So we had a camera that malfunctioned. Right before the show. And real quick here, I'm going to do my best to figure out exactly. There he is. There's Rob. Okay, I'm still not sure exactly what happened, but we do have Rob. We had camera 3. You're in Eric's seat today, and Eric is supposed to be back tomorrow, so we're excited to have him.
Got to work on those cameras tomorrow, there. Paul.
That's right. That's right. So here is Elon Musk. This was April 17th.
What to do about mass unemployment? This is going to be a massive social challenge. And I think ultimately we will have to have some kind of universal basic income. I don't think we're going to have a choice.
Universal basic income.
Universal basic income. I think it's going to be necessary.
So it means that unemployed people will be paid across the globe.
Yeah.
Because there is no job. Machine, robot is taking over.
There will be fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better.
Okay.
That's simply and I want to be clear that these are not things that I wish would happen. These are simply things that I think probably will happen. And if my assessment is correct and they probably will happen, then we need to say, what are we going to do about it? And I think some kind of a universal basic income is going to be necessary. Now, the output of goods and services will be extremely high. So with automation, there will come abundance. There will be almost everything will get very cheap. I think I think we'll just end up doing a universal basic income. It's going to be necessary. The harder challenge, much harder challenge, is how do people then have meaning? Like a lot of people, they derive their meaning from their employment.
Yeah, I mean, he's
if
telling the truth.
You don't have, if you're not needed, if there's not a need for your labor, how do you? What's the meaning? Do you have meaning? Do you feel useless? That's a much harder problem to deal with.
So he's exactly right there, and that kind of gets the crux. I think this is actually an older clip because he's much younger there, obviously. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's the kicker here. That kind of gets into the philosophical side of things. I mean, for all of human history, you get up and you go do something with your life. You go do something to put food on the table, and if now you don't have that, what is that? I mean, I think about COVID. Mm-hmm. Depression went through the roof when people are locked down. There was a lot of government money coming. Addiction went through the roof. I mean, who's to say that? I mean, we talk about the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum has these plans like, what do we do? The transhuman are going to come, and what do we do with all these people we don't need anymore? Well, we'll give them drugs and video games. They've literally said that.
Yeah. I think that some of the stuff is a lot farther out than what maybe some people are predicting. There are some people that just within the next 2 years, that there's going to be no need for this or that or this or that. And I just think that I believe that it'll take quite a bit longer, but we're already seeing how, like a graphic designer, like why would you pay for a graphic designer if you need new artwork for a brochure, right? Why would you pay for a graphic designer? You could plug all what you're thinking into AI and have it produce it, and it's free. Or if you have the paid version of AI, it's going to be peanuts compared to what you would pay for an actual graphic design. Editors, for your book, your novel, what are they called?
Autobiography? What do you?
No. The people that review it for grammatical errors.
Yeah. Your editors.
Oh, your editors.
Yeah,
okay. I guess when I'm thinking of editor, I'm thinking of like editor of a newspaper.
Yeah. Which
is not really the editor. Mm-hmm. He or she is just the person in charge. Essentially. Anyway, so I think those jobs are gone. Right, and going to be far, far diminished. And the people that survive in those industries are the ones that utilize AI. And that's what a lot of individuals are talking about, especially in the real estate world, is they just like, hey, you can't fight against this AI being, beast that is here. How can you utilize it? And sorry. The LFA producer there in the comments. LFA producer.
Eli.
Hey,
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, guys, I'm a graphic designer. Shh.
Sorry, brother.
Sorry, man. But it's funny. Guys, we do watch the chat. So we love the back and forth with you guys. And so we don't know everything. We don't.
No, we don't.
We don't know everything. We're just talking about the news of the day, and we've got a lot of news to get to. But AI is something we just keep beating that drum.
The dangers of it all, I mean, are real. But then you've got to get, you're going to have the convenience of it all. But again, how do you argue against something like a universal basic income if it happens? And then, I think we're all looking at how AI is revolutionizing like desk jobs, like basically, time spent at the computer, and it is doing that. But I don't think we talk enough about the robots. And I mean, I was talking to a guy who's in logistics, and he was saying that he was part of a project where they built a factory, and the entire factory is automated. Literally, and if something breaks down, they send a robot in to fix the other robots.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking this morning. I was like, because I've obviously seen all of the science fiction that you have out there. I mean, we've all seen The Matrix. We've all seen Terminator. There needs to be a law passed today to regulate the materials that can be used in the production of robots. And all of them, whatever the material is, if it cannot be taken out with a 9mm or a shotgun blast, it should be completely illegal to build. You can't even build a robot that can't be neutralized with a shotgun or a 9mm.
Because we've seen Terminator 2.
We've
seen iRobot.
Exactly. I don't think that's crazy at all. I mean, maybe you guys disagree, but
no, I don't think it's crazy because my grandmother, when she was alive, so this would have been quite a few years ago, she had a surgery with the Da Vinci. I believe that's what it's called, and it's a robot that cuts you open. It cuts you open and performs the surgery. And one of the most remarkable things about it, Paul, was in addition to its incredible accuracy, which they wouldn't be using it if it wasn't, incredibly accurate. The healing time is a third what it is if a human cuts you open, because the cuts are so precise and they're only cutting what they need. And so to me, that is going to be one of those things where now there's going to be people that just don't trust, these operations to occur via a robot, right? And I would have a lot of apprehension myself about that. But we're both in our 40s, and so by the time that we're Social Security age, Social Security number one will not be around. We're not going to get Social Security, Paul. I hope. Spoiler alert.
Well, we're going to get that UBI apparently.
What's that?
The Universal Basic Income.
Oh, the UBI. Yeah. So the universe. So that's what we're hoping for. Because all this money I've paid into Social Security is going to be gone. But yeah, I think that I'd be nervous about these robots, but it's like anything. We're always nervous about things at the very beginning. I mean, who would have ever thought that we would allow electric cars to drive you around with no driver? And I see news clips right now where there was this 92-year-old woman who got a Tesla, and she was excited because it would drive her to church, and she didn't have to rely on her family for a ride to church. And she was so excited about that. And so those are the positive things. But who would have ever thought? We're allowing people to drive down the motorways with electric vehicles that are self-driving. Okay? That wouldn't have happened 10 years ago, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because there's safety, and what about this, and the ability to make a decision there. It's automate all this stuff, and how you react to somebody. I don't know.
Well, it was only a few years ago. It was crazy to think about. There was the viral videos of people driving on the interstate, and some guy in a Tesla passed out asleep.
Yeah.
And that is already.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, but that is already kind of not a big deal now. Because the technologies come
that's
even
true.
further.
Yeah. Well,
So-
Susan brought up a good point there in the comments. Da Vinci is run by human hands, so the robot does not do any surgery on its own. It's controlled.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, I knew that.
And so that's a great point there that I didn't clarify. But yeah, it's controlled by human hands. But Da Vinci was being used. Correct me if I'm wrong. 15 years ago. I mean, it was. I think it was as old as that. And so what we're going to see here is there are going to be robots doing those surgeries that are not operated by hand.
Yeah.
And maybe there's one human on standby, and now we've got 4 robots in this operating room, each serving a different purpose. Well, then who does that get rid of?
Right.
That gets rid of our surgical techs. That gets rid of these RNs that are in here. What about, are anesthesiologists going to be put out of a job because you can have a robot put you under? I sure as hell won't let a robot put me under.
Yep. And to think about the dangers there, too. I mean, we all saw the top-down communism that was flipped during COVID, where we actually had people with flesh and blood following orders mindlessly.
Oh, yeah.
Could it get worse? Yeah, because you had doctors that dissented.
Yeah.
There is no dissent with that kind of system at all. Now, this is the video that's really gone viral. 500,000 views. So, it's being pushed right now, and it's a guy by the name of Eric Weinstein. It's actually from a podcast, The Diary of a CEO, back on July 14th of last year. So it's almost a year old, and it's this viral clip, and it's kind of this tweet here, this post is summarized a little differently than the whole context of the podcast, but this does kind of get the gist of it. Take a listen.
To the average person, I would say get your board in the water and prepare to paddle like all get out. The tsunami of a lifetime is coming, and nothing your elders have seen is going to prepare. There's no good advice to give that's specific. Let's put it this way. One of the things when people tell me about their moving from one city to another, I have a phrase that nobody likes, which is every place is over. Oh, I'm moving to Austin. Yeah, it's over. Miami, it's over. Nashville, over. All these places are over. And every occupation that is named is over. I'm going to be a dentist, radiologist, accountant, teacher. These are all over. Whatever's coming, get flexible, get good. Get good on a bunch of different stuff. Learn how to think across disciplines. I have no idea what's going to be left for us. But somebody's going to come out on top. And I hate to tell people that you should try to come out on top. I don't think it's healthy to have everyone trying to be world class. I think you should be able to just have a life. I have a golden retriever. I don't know that it's the greatest golden retriever in the world.
Yeah, so again, now this tweet by a guy by the name of Dustin, he kind of editorializes this a little bit outside of the full context of what he was saying, but it is an interesting tweet because this is also going. So Eric Weinstein just described the end of mapped life. For 10,000 years, humans had to earn the right to exist. Pick a noun, become the noun, die as the noun. Accountant, teacher, radiologist. The box had a name. You climbed inside. You stayed until retirement or death. Weinstein, everybody's occupation, or every occupation that is named is over. No automated, not replaced. Or I'm sorry, not automated, not replaced. Named. You picked a noun. It told you who you were. Then it told you who. You were. If your future has a title, your parents recognize that future is already dissolving beneath you. Weinstein, a tsunami of lifetime is coming. People hear this and assume it's about unemployment. He says it's not. It's about identity. The machines aren't absorbing tasks. They're dissolving the categories we built ourselves around. You spent your whole life becoming a noun. The noun is about to stop existing. When the label disappears, what's left for you? Stop being a noun, start being a verb, they say. But the most important thing Weinstein said has nothing to do with strategy. It touches on something much older, something much closer to the bone. In a world where AI is world-class at everything, what is the point of a human being? For 10,000s of years, humans' worth was measured by output, how much you could lift, how fast you could think, how much value you could squeeze from a single day. We trained ourselves to think like machines because machines didn't exist yet. Now they do, and they will be better than us at every measurable thing. Most people hear that and feel terror. They should feel something closer to relief, he says. When a machine can do it better, the metric dies. When the metric dies, the cage opens. You were never supposed to be a spreadsheet. You were never supposed to justify your breath with a job. Your golden retriever doesn't optimize. It doesn't produce quarterly earnings. It doesn't prove its worth to anyone. It just lives, and you love it anyway. That was always the offer. We just couldn't afford it. Now we can. We spent tens, thousands of years trying to prove we were machines. The machines just arrived to tell us we never had to be. So I don't agree with all of that. That's one way to look at it, but it is an interesting take.
It's apocalyptic in a certain sense that if he's saying that if you don't adjust, if you're not malleable here a little bit, that you are going to, you're going to get left behind. I don't know how much is dentistry going to be put out of business because of AI and because essentially it's a robot replacing a human,
right?
Because AI can all of these digital jobs where people,
yes,
heck, we're even seeing it with customer service where AI is, all of this stuff.
Insurance claims, all that could just be bloop, your job is gone.
Totally understand that
within 10 years, maybe.
Right, but these jobs that require, how is AI and a robot going to replace a carpenter? How are they going to replace a plumber? How are they going to replace an electrician? Right now, you could say a robot could wire up a house.
I mean, I get that's what I'm saying. I guess Elon, from Elon Musk's point of view, does that mean literally at some point in the near future, within our lifetimes? Let's say we're 40. Let's say you and I conservatively have another 40 years. Maybe that's not conservative, but let's say we're going to live to be 80.
Okay.
We call a plumber. I'm 65, 70 years old. I call a plumber. Is a robot walking through the door in that time? It seems to be that seems to be what Elon Musk and these other guys are saying, that yes, that is exactly what's going to happen. Okay, well that's tough for me to wrap my mind around. I'm going to go to the dentist, or a robot's going to come to my house and do my root canal, or whatever. Doesn't really seem like that's realistic. I mean, as a 40-year-old. I mean, I'm even having trouble imagining that being a realistic scenario. It seems like that's what they're saying, though. That seems like that's what they're claiming is going to happen.
I will say this, Paul, to put a more positive spin on this, so that this is not so drab.
Yeah, no, right. I'm gonna put a positive. Go ahead.
Okay, so I will say it from a perspective of there's nothing as resilient as a human being.
Yes.
Okay, there is nothing as resilient as a godly human being. Okay. And I believe that if, let's just say that you're of faith and you believe in the one true God, whether you're a Christian or not, if you believe in the one true God, you would say, we are the apple of his eye, human beings. We were created and given the ability to reason. We were given all of these things that the animals and the what does it call it in the Bible? The creepy crawlers of the, all of these things.
Creeping things.
Thank you. We were given things that they were not, right? And so human beings, and I don't know that, I hope that my dogs, the ones I've lost, are in heaven, but I don't know. I don't know if animals are going to be in heaven. But I do know that human spirits are, that the people who have lived a godly life are going to be there. And so I don't believe in a God that would allow humans to completely fail unless that was his plan from the very beginning. So I will say that I'm not going to worry about it. I am going to use AI in real estate, and I'm going to adapt to it and make sure that I'm not getting left behind. But at the same time, I don't have this, oh God, I've seen the end. I've seen how Terminator ends.
No, I think that's good too. Obviously, all of this is happening within God's redemptive plan for humanity, for mankind. So I'm not afraid of it in that sense at all. I'm just saying okay, look, this whole free market economic, which we don't have free markets right now anyway. I think we've covered that on the show. That's all an illusion and a lie. But you're going to have these people, universal basic income is terrible. And I would, on paper, agree with you. But I'm just trying to say, practically speaking, we're almost to the point where, this is going to make the Industrial Revolution look like,
Child's play.
Yeah, it's Mickey Mouse. And so I don't see how you argue against UBI if the jobs are actually gone, and if the input or the output is going to be what they claim it is, where there's going to be so many goods, and you've got robots and you got robots fixing robots. That'd be pretty ironic if the only job left was some human that has to go fix the robots. Like that's the only. That's actually a really funny story.
Oh, I wonder if that would be a good apocalyptic movie.
I think it would be
The Last Human.
But you did touch on something about Christianity that I think is interesting here. So if you look at this part here where it says, but the most important thing is it touches something much older, something closer at home in a world of AI. Oh, so for 10,000 years, look at this. For 10,000 years, human worth was measured by output, and so this is true. Maybe it's more like 6,000, but okay, give or take. This is true, and this is why the Christian message was so different from so many other things in the world. All of the other things in the world. It's like, that is true, and that is a product of the fall of man from the Garden of Eden, and actually, like what you were saying, Rob. The Lord God actually does love the people he created, right? He died for a people. He died to redeem a people. So this is actually, if this were to happen the way we think, where, okay, everything's got like the big, this is a huge opportunity for the church, actually. Because just like we've listened to Dr. Francis Schaeffer on this program before on a Friday, talking about how did the church survive? Why did the church survive the fall of Rome? Why did the church survive the persecution of Rome? Then Constantine, 300 AD says, okay, Christianity's legal. Matter of fact, everybody's a Christian now. How did they survive that period? Well, they survived it, according to Francis Schaeffer, because their foundation was built on something more solid that could withstand the pressures of life. There was an eternal perspective, but also what does that mean on a practical level, that this is not our home, and the church survived that. They survived much persecution. How do they survive the Middle Ages, right, which is actually wrongfully called the Dark Ages in my opinion, the Middle Ages, and it's all because the Christian church's foundation is built on something eternal and the solid rock, if you will. And so when it comes to something that's going to be this massive upheaval of what we know, there's great opportunity for the theological truths, the eternal truths about who we are as people to really actually take hold in a new way, in a dare I say a revival, if you will. Go. What
I was just going to say, Eric texted us, and he's like, "You guys know that I worked for Da Vinci Surgery for 8 years, right?"
Oh no,
no, Eric, we didn't know that. Eric's listening in,
brother.
Be in
so we probably. Today. I wonder how much you got wrong,
dude. I was totally butchering it. Eric was probably rolling his eyes, like this dummy.
Fake news. You're fake news.
Just stick to real estate, Rob.
But
you know what? I want to ask you this question because
I
was arguing with somebody in the comments of a video today. And
did you change their mind?
I do that from time to time.
Yeah.
No, I don't change. I usually just insult them. I'm sorry.
I
just insult them because you're so stupid. I can't handle stupid people. I am not. I will say this: LFA TV, YouTube, X, wherever you're streaming this show and you're watching this, I'm going to tell everybody through the computer screen, phone screen, and all that. I am not very smart, Paul. I'm not very smart. I'm not dumb. I'm not. But there are far superior, people to me in terms of intelligence. Okay. But I don't think I'm lacking in common sense. I think I can discern something and be able to separate the fluff from where reality is, and I think it's because I'm 700 transactions in my real estate career, which means I've shown this many homes and talked to this many people, and it's just, because it's exponential what you have to do just to get one transaction.
I was about to say 700 transactions. What does that translate into how many homes you've shown somebody?
Sure.
It's got to be what?
Yeah, well,
thousands, 10,000 or something?
Well, you have less than a 2% conversion rate on average from all lead sources. Now, there are other lead sources that have a higher conversion rate, but that means that for every 100 people I talk to, I hope to close 2 of them in terms of whether it's a sale of a home or something like that. I'm mostly residential. I do commercial and stuff, but I'm mostly residential. Anyway, I will say that I am pretty darn sharp in real estate these days, okay? But with that real estate experience I have to talk to all kinds of different people. And I remember some Saturdays where I would show 10, 15 homes, and it would be to 4 different clients, and each one of them were different personalities. Each one of them were at different stages of life. Each one of them were different socioeconomic status and all of this stuff. And so I feel like I'm pretty good at knowing people, right? There are some highly intelligent people that can't hold a normal conversation with somebody because they can't relate to them, okay? None of this is my point other than to say I'm not very smart, Paul, in terms of book smart and all of that stuff, okay? But my goodness, man, I'm telling you, I will never be able to understand the Democratic mindset of double standards are about. We don't care what our side does whatsoever. If the right does it, I'm against it. That is their stance. How much infighting have we had on the right because we don't agree with everything?
We're a coalition party.
Yeah, we're a coalition party. We have a little of this, little of that, little of this, little of that. We've got people in our party that are absolutely against homosexuality, and then we've got a highly influential voter, whatever you want to call him, whip, is in Scott Pressler.
Caitlin Collins.
Yeah. I don't know. Is she gay? I don't think she's gay.
No. I think people think that the 2 of them look alike.
Oh.
It's a roast.
Yeah, they don't look anything alike.
It's a low blow.
Okay.
You know, the CNN lady, the CNN news anchor?
Yes. Yeah. But Scott Pressler, great dude. You know, he's gay, right? And so we've got that's how varied our party is. And I will argue, going back to what I originally was trying to say, I was arguing with somebody, and they were this was Wells Fargo CEO, and he was on C-SPAN. He was being interviewed, and he talked about how much more approachable this administration is than the previous administration. He said, we get calls all of the time from Trump and his people asking about, what are your thoughts if we do this? What are your thoughts on that? And somebody would say, well, that means you're letting them influence your policy. You're letting them run our financial policy from the government, and we don't need business and banks and all of that's doing it. And I say, that right there just shows your lack of intelligence. Do not wave that diploma in front of me, because I'm going to sit here and tell you, any person who is stupid enough to shut down all of these experts and not absorb what they're saying about this financial policy or this one. Donald Trump is a phenomenal, polar of many different opinions. Donald Trump has, going back to his books that he wrote in The Art of the Deal in 1987, he's like, I will ask this person, I'll ask this person, I'll ask this person until I start to form a good idea about what I should do. Well, that means he's doing some data research here. Now, I know I'm going off on some side tangents here, but I just wanted to say that the Democrats go with what they're told. COVID was a demonstration in crowd control, mind control, and if Democrats ever had the balls to sit here with a straight face and say, I wouldn't have got on that train. I'm like, what? Were you the one calling the hotline for the people during COVID? Your neighbors?
I wouldn't have supervised and put people on the train.
Did you follow Did you follow the damn arrows at the grocery store that told you to go this way or this way?
Yes.
Right? Don't sit here and tell me that we're a cult.
Yeah, it's insane.
We're not, right? And sorry, I mean, I've just gone off on all these side tangents, but damn it, man, I cannot stand the hypocrisy of the left, because the people in the comments on that video were like, "You mean you couldn't manipulate the last administration?" Because he said you couldn't contact anybody there.
Right.
And I'm like, if you're the CEO of all these banks, these big, huge Chase, Wells Fargo, these big players here that have such a huge thing to do with what we do. Sorry, I'll wrap this up. But their financial loaning money and all of this stuff just makes the engine turn. If they don't have some kind of say in what you're doing, that to me just goes with that liberal mindset of, I'm shutting them off. We're going to do what we want to do. Look at what's happening in Virginia. My God, there's some Virginians right now that are regretting their vote.
Yeah.
That woman has gone, she ran as a centrist. She is the farthest thing from a centrist right now.
Yeah, I mean, she's the CIA plant. I mean, fundamentally.
Oh,
she's literally there.
So anyway, that happened today, and I got in all these arguments.
No, I know, I get it, man. And that's the thing. You never change anything. Unfortunately, with these comments, Facebook or Twitter or wherever.
Sure.
I mean, you just rarely ever convince anybody. It's so pointless. I wanted to give the other side of the UBI argument, though. Like, everybody's saying, "Oh, it's going to be great. We just got to let it happen." It actually could have disastrous results if we're just talking about giving people something for nothing, and you're not honestly, if you're not a Bible believing Christian, it really could be disastrous. So this guy named Max says UBI advocacy stems from the naivete and sloppy Salopiism. That because I am a deeply creative, latent producer who is oppressed by my wage job and would actualize my creative potential, if only I could have my basic needs met, this must be true for everyone. It's not. First of all, it's not even true for these creatives. If you aren't creation maxing while you're waging, you won't do it under luxury communism either. Creative work is extremely taxing, and your wage job isn't actually that hard. The problem is your neuroticism and lack of discipline, not your job. All your necessities being provided for will only make you weaker and gayer, such that you'll make up some new BS to get overwhelmed by and then cope by playing video games all day. But worse, because you won't even have "at least I did something productive today," which will magnify your depression.
Yeah.
Second, luxury communism already exists for the bottom 20% of the population. All their food, housing, etc. is completely covered by the state. Entire generations of people who haven't worked a job in their lives, a day in their lives. Do they go on to produce beautiful art and build companies, or do they go on to get high and kill each other? The truth is that we are close enough to UBI today that most of the people who will ever become great artists and inventors are already going to do it. And as we get closer, all that will happen is the people incapable of anything more than wage slavery, most people, will simply become dysfunctional parasites. Now, this is a completely it's a completely different take, but I immediately thought of COVID and
think about
what happened in COVID.
And think about the emasculation of men.
I know, man.
You know, like we have very defined roles. My wife is our office manager at our real estate, but she just does that to pass the time. Like, she doesn't. I'm fortunate that my wife doesn't have to work, there is a certain level of a role. Rob is the husband. Rob goes and earns the money. Rob is the one that protects our financial. Rob makes sure that our kids have food and all of this stuff. Like that, there are so many nuclear families that are built around now. Now, there are some stay-at-home dads because the wives have just much higher paying jobs and something of that nature, but those are rare.
Yeah,
most of the time is the husband working at the steel mill. It's the husband working this corporate job or this one or whatever, and the woman is head of the household in terms of like raising the children and all of this stuff. And that is a role that most people, I would just say that most married couples have, at least conservative men. Anyway, my point of it is, if the husband loses that, where is the husband going to find his value as the head of the family? in the role. Now he's supposed to be the spiritual leader of the family. He's supposed to be the head of the household. Biblically, we take our wives' opinion into consideration, but biblically speaking, I don't want to offend any women in our comments here, but biblically speaking, the husband is the final say, and we adhere to that, and I believe that most conservative Christian marriages are that same way. Now, I will tell you this: I very rarely make decisions on that stuff. I'm in charge of my teenage son's parenting because he will not respect his mother at all, pisses me off to no end. So I'm in charge of that boy's parenting, and that's totally fine. But my wife is the one that pays all of our bills. I just make sure there's money in there to do it, right? And there's comfort in that. There's peace in that, and that's where we are. If I was not the breadwinner, I don't know how I could find my worth in my family. I don't. And I know that may be as a flaw for me. Well, because I've got something I've got to work on, but I just want to say I'm not the only one who feels this way.
Well, here's the deal. This is the kind of the crux of it, honestly. Like, the reason this could be a disaster is, it's a command from God. Like, the Garden of Eden happened, and what was Adam told to do? He was kicked out of the garden. By the way, this is a great analogy. If you ever got one of these woke Christians that wants to tell you a border is racist, then you should ask them, well, is God a racist, or is God selective when he enforced the border of the Garden of Eden and kicked people out? Anyway, that's just a tertiary thing. So Adam is told by the Lord, hey, from now on, you're going to have to sweat, you're going to have to work, you're going to have to toil the earth. This is what you're going to do. This is now you. And so all technology that we have is a tool. The tools can be used for good. The tools can be used for evil. And a lot of times they are used for evil because we are so wicked. But fundamentally, you have to start thinking of technology as a way to make the toil easier. That's why we have technology. It's because of the curse. It's because of the fall of man, right?
Yeah.
But it still doesn't negate what you're talking about, is that we're supposed to work. And if we get to a situation now where, and this is what Jeff Dorknick is saying here on his show, Elon Musk is saying, well, let's just listen to it. Elon Musk is promising essentially heaven on earth. That's what's so scary about this. The rhetoric that's coming out from some of these people, it sounds like they actually believe that they can deliver some sort of utopia here. And when you get to that, you're getting to Titanic levels of delusion. The unsinkable ship. It's like right when you go down that road, catastrophe follows.
That actually gives other people outside of your body control over what's happening inside of your body. So, and you've all know, Harari has already said that with this kind of technology that we no longer have free will, because it used to be that they could control us through propaganda. Now they can actually control us from within, which is absolutely terrifying. So there is that. Then you've got Elon Musk, like I said earlier, both Elon and Bill Gates have talked about the next 10 years, the workforce will be completely replaced by AI and robots. But there was this really interesting conversation that not a lot of people that I've talked to have actually seen between Elon Musk and Benjamin Netanyahu. And Netanyahu was actually interviewing Elon Musk about the future of artificial intelligence. And he asked him, what's the end game? Like, where is all this going with AI? And Elon explained, well, AI is going to take us in one of two places. Either it's going to be Terminator and they take over the planet and we become enslaved and we're in a constant war and battle for humanity against these robots that go rogue, or it's going to be heaven on earth. And Netanyahu then asked him, well, what does heaven on earth look like when you implement with artificial intelligence? And he said, basically, none of us will have to work because AI and robots will be able to do everything. We'll have universal basic income, because you don't have to work, so you're going to have to be able to buy things. So we'll have to have universal basic income. And then you basically just think it and you get it. And, in my paraphrase is basically we become all-consuming blobs of flesh. Very similar. I don't know if you saw the Pixar movie WALL-E many years ago.
Yeah, have you ever seen WALL-E when they're just on the ships and they're lazy, fat slobs?
Right.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'll just tell you this. Like, think about what what we saw in COVID, and one specific. Now this happened in multiple places, but one specific place happened, and it was in it was a grocery store, and there was a news story in Michigan. Okay, because Gretchen Whitmer, and that's a 50-50 state, right? Michigan is a swing state. So you would expect it to not be so crazy as states like Oregon, or Vermont or something like that. In Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer ordered only essential things could be purchased from the grocery store. They blocked off parts of the grocery store. One of the parts that I saw in this news story was packages of seeds for cucumbers and squash and anything like the tomatoes, things that you would grow in your garden. And I was like, they're controlling us through these directives that they're giving out here, and they're restricting what we can even do.
Yep.
I can't buy these seeds and grow them because for some reason, me reaching over here and grabbing this package is going to somehow increase the spreading of COVID or something like that. Kiss my ass. The next time the Democrats truly get in power and there are no checks and balances on them, hell hath no fury.
Oh, it's really going to be bad.
Hell hath no fury like what they are going to do. And I side note, if they don't get this filibuster nuked and pass this crap before the November elections, folks, I'm telling you, with everything in my power, as soon as the Democrats get back into power of the Senate, that filibuster is gone.
No, you're exactly right. I'm really glad that you brought this. Is a great segue to kind of get out of this UBI segment, and that is
depressing.
What the Democrats will do when they win, or if, looks like when they get back into power, aside from impeach Trump. Now I think the U.S. Senate is potentially in play.
Yeah, the Senate, and it would be really challenging to keep the House at this point.
Yeah, there's a lot of news cycles between now and then.
Yeah.
Every single headline is Iran over and over and over, and it doesn't stop. It's got to end. And this doesn't help either. And I'm kind of upset about this, but, it's not like, what can I do about it? But I'm just saying, like, how many times have we reported on this show? Oh, well, I think we're there. I think we got a deal. And obviously, I'm excited to report it because I want this thing to be over because I didn't support it in the first place. But it is absolutely everything. And every time President Trump goes out, that's all the questions he gets. We don't get to talk about the domestic policies. The press is only talking about Iran because they know it's something that has divided the coalition, and it just has. You may not like it, but it has. And so I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
To not want this war in Iran is not going against Trump. It's not a rebuke of Trump. It's just like, no, we just don't want it. We don't.
Well, and it's like again, I say this. There's a reason Nikki Haley wasn't the nominee. If like we had this debate over new wars, and I understand. People are going to say, oh, well, that must mean you want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. No, that doesn't.
No,
that is not what that means actually.
And if they were legitimately about to get it, Paul, if they were legitimately about to get it, as the intelligence allegedly said,
right?
I understand why Trump felt like action was taken.
Yeah,
because
I get that too. I get that too. The issue is, with the whole Diddy or were they about to, were they not? Was we know what happened during we know what happened at Fordo. We remember.
Yeah.
Right? It was last summer. We did the strikes, and we were told, and I was so happy. I was happy because what did the administration tell us? The administration said we destroyed their nuclear program. I was like, great. That means no ground war.
Yep.
And then less than a year later,
they were about to get a nuke.
They were about to get a nuke. So,
dang,
and a matter of fact, whether you believe it or not, the New York Times had the New York Times had the story a couple weeks ago saying that all the advisors, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, not all the advisors, but several of them were like, I don't buy what Bibi Netanyahu is selling. I actually think that it's going to be much harder. His goals are much more difficult to accomplish. Yeah, we can take out the Ayatollah, but after that, it's kind of like we're not really sure. In that conversation, you'll have to. I've totally blanked. What was it? What was it? I was just talking about. Rob, help me out.
We were just talking about not wanting ground
that's what they said.
troops
No. The Fordo. In that conversation, according to the New York Times report, which again, take with a giant grain of salt, they said one of the concerns was, well, if we go forward with this, it's going to be tough to explain why we said the nuclear weapons or the capability was downgraded less than a year ago. Mm-hmm. Like that was actually allegedly brought up in one of these meetings. So anyway, is it open? Is it closed? Let's hope that there's some deal made. Let's kind of go through the headlines here. Headline: Iran peace talks off. No, they're on, and they will kill U.S. soldiers. This was the Independent Sentinel. Derek Evans, President Trump's issues last chance warning as Iran has not agreed to attend Tuesday's peace talks. Quote, if the deal isn't done, the deal that we made, then I'm going to take out their bridges and their power plants. If they don't sign this thing, the whole country is going to get blown up. This is what Trump told Fox News. Then in the meantime, we had this story, or we had President Trump posting this. So on Truth Social, he's posted a bunch over the weekend on Truth Social. Mm-hmm. Says, whether people like Israel or not, they have proven to be a great ally of the United States, he writes. They are courageous, bold, loyal, and smart, and unlike others that have shown their true colors in a moment of conflict and stress, Israel fights hard and knows how to win. President Donald J. Trump. Now, this was interesting to me because I was like, okay, so he has gotten the message that some people are not a fan of Israel's influence when it comes to our foreign policy, or he wouldn't have said whether people like Israel or not. I thought that was interesting. And now he is saying this as well. He followed up with this today. He said, Israel never talked me into the war with Iran. The results of October 7th added to my lifelong opinion that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. Did. That's kind of what you were saying, Rob. Mm-hmm. I watch and read the fake news pundits and polls in total disbelief. 90% of what they are saying are lies and made-up stories, and the polls are rigged, much as the 2020 election was rigged, just like the results in Venezuela, which the media doesn't like to talk about. The results in Iran will be amazing, and if Iran's new leaders, regime change, are smart, Iran can have a great and prosperous future. So I think this post by President Trump is probably in response to this story in the Wall Street Journal. Headline, President Trump's public bravado on the war. He grapples with his own fears. The president's impulsive style has never before been tested during a sustained military conflict. And then they compare him to Jimmy Carter. So President Trump is not a fan of this Wall Street Journal article. One of the summaries of it claims that in this article, they detail that Trump used to call the Middle East blood and sand and wanted nothing to do with it. Netanyahu then, according to the article, gave him a persuasive February briefing in the Situation Room, backed up by repeated calls from Lindsey Graham, and Trump changed his mind. He thought it would be like Venezuela. And then it says that his own team has showed him midterm polling that proved the war was dragging down Republican candidates. He quickly began ruminating on how the military action could turn into a catastrophe. On the Strait of Hormuz, Trump told his team before the war that Iran would likely capitulate before closing the strait. Anyway, this is the Wall Street Journal that President Trump is calling fake news. But overall, the report paints a picture of a president who was talked into a war by Netanyahu and people like Lindsey Graham. Now, again, I'm not necessarily one to trust the New York Times or Wall Street Journal at all. However, I will say when the war first started and we struck first, you had Marco Rubio. Mm-hmm. He came out and he said, "Hey, look, we had to protect our soldiers. Israel was going to strike, so we had to strike first." Mike Johnson said the same thing. President Trump has even said something similar. Mm-hmm. We struck first because Israel was going to. I think even Mike Johnson said it. I think even Secretary of Defense Hegseth has said it. And, of course, then the press ran with, Israel basically drug us into that. But then you have other people now claim that if you say that, then that's anti-Semitic to say that Israel, pulled us into it. The whole thing is a mess, and that's why it has to end sooner rather than later. I'm going to give you time to talk here in just a minute. So also over the weekend, President Trump posting Frank Sinatra.
And now,
okay,
the end is near.
So I do it my way. That's the song. So he posts "My Way." Mm-hmm. The end is near, and now the end is near. I did it my way. People are trying to decode what exactly does that mean. Is it the end of the war? Is it the end of Iran as a civilization? And then about 12:35, President Trump says that there is a deal, or he seems to think that we are making the deal. He says, quote, "The deal that we are making with Iran will be far better than the JCPOA, commonly referred to as the Iran nuclear deal penned by Barack Hussein Obama." Then he goes on to talk about how terrible that deal was and how the deal that we're going to get is going to be much better. So, Rob, what are your thoughts on all of this? You can tell I'm frustrated.
He posted that 4 hours ago?
Yes, and I can check his Truth Social to see what he's posted since. He says 3 hours ago, he said the Iranian leadership has forced hundreds of ships towards the United States, mostly Texas, Louisiana, and Alaska, to get their oil. Thank you very much. So he's trying to say that now we're going to, they can get the stuff from us.
I've got a couple of things I would say. I am not in the Situation Room.
Correct.
I am not receiving this highly classified intelligence briefing material. I'm not hearing any of this stuff. This is us just from the outside or whatever. I think it is incredibly stupid and naive. Maybe those are strong words, but I strongly disagree with someone trying to convince me that Benjamin Netanyahu is puppeteering Donald Trump. They are allies. I believe that there is a mutual respect there, and I think Benjamin Netanyahu is a flawed man who has made many, many mistakes. But I also think I think he's generally in trying to do what's in the best interest of his country. Now, that's my opinion. It's my opinion. I also know something, that if Iran were to put down their weapons and say, "Listen, we're tired of fighting. We're done with this," that Israel would do nothing to them. They would not attack them. They would not blow them up.
Oh, I disagree with that.
Oh my gosh, Paul! Then you're going to have to give me one instance of Israel unprompted or not in any kind of reaction to something that Hamas or these terrorist organizations that are funded by Iran. You're going to have to give me something that Israel, one instance where they were the aggressors and just went out and started attacking somebody.
Well, first of all, what I'll say is I don't have that. All I'm saying is I think if what I'm saying is I don't think if Iran just said, "Hey, we're done, we're laying down our arms," I think Israel still believes that they're a threat.
Okay,
that's what I'm trying to say, and I don't have any instances off the top of my head because I mean, what came first, the chicken or the egg? I mean, that region has been at war tit for tat,
sure,
for forever, but it is clear that Israel sees Iran as a mortal danger to their country.
Yeah.
And if they laid down their arms and surrendered, I think that's what you're talking about.
Well,
surrender.
I would just say,
so I don't think they would have a country anymore.
I think what you're saying is operating under the belief that Israel would not believe them if they put them. Am I putting words into your mouth?
Oh,
like
no,
if
I
Israel
hadn't
believed,
even considered that. But no, I hadn't even considered that.
If
But
Iran,
at this point now, I mean, it's like the rhetoric is so high. I mean, that's a great point. Practically speaking, it would never happen.
Okay,
because
but let's just say that two believable declarations were made at different times, and Iran's believable Iran is an oxymoron. I get that, but Iran's declaration is, we are putting down our arms. Now, we don't want to be obliterated as a country, but we want to just live our lives now and open up commerce and try to do, run a country. I don't believe that Israel is going to wipe them off the map because they've not done it. I mean, it would be, in my opinion, that there's no instance of that where there's then an unprompted attack of Israel against someone, against their neighbors. Now, that's from what I remember, from what I've heard and what I've seen. However, if Israel was to say, we are putting down our arms, we do not want to fight anymore, what is Iran going to do? Through its proxies, but what is it going to do? Blood in the water. We're going to have October 7th times 1 million, in my opinion. And imagine what October 7th would have been if Iran had a nuclear weapon. You can disagree with Israel. You can disagree with the control that maybe some Jews have in our everyday lives and this, and they're not the sweet innocent people. My God, the Jews killed Jesus. I mean, you and I are both Christians. We believe in the risen Son. So they're not infallible. But I believe in everything that I have seen from Israel is always a reaction to something that Iran has done. Iran, if they were in fact close to a nuclear weapon, their nuclear weapons were blown up last year, or their nuclear ambitions, their facilities, and all of that.
But so here's the thing on that, right?
Okay.
When I interviewed Andy Cyrus, right? As you know, we had this discussion. Andy Cyrus, of course, grew up in Iran until she was 15. Is now Christian. Got out of the country. Her grandmother smuggled her out via Turkey, and she came to the U.S. and then eventually came to faith in Christ. And I can't remember the exact question that I asked her, but one of the things I asked her was about this, the idea of them using the nukes. Mm-hmm. I know what it was. It was me asking her about self-preservation. My question was, how, because we are told in America that Iran is this, theocracy that is like end of the world nuts, and they don't care. The idea of mutually assured destruction doesn't apply to them, is what we're told. Meaning, if they were to use a nuke on anybody else, the idea that then they would get nuked in return, we're told that no longer matters. That's why they can't have a nuke, because if they have a nuke, they'll use the nuke. And so I asked her, my question I think was, does the theocracy, the people at the top that are in charge of this theocracy, do they actually believe that, or is it just something to keep people under the thumb? Do the people at the top who are living in the lap of luxury, with their power, with their wealth, does self-preservation ever come into where it's all kind of fake,
Yeah.
And she talked about this fatwa that was actually put in place. I didn't even know anything about it, but apparently there's a fatwa against having a nuclear weapon. That there's like some religious connotations against them actually creating it.
Well, they're not following that.
Well, no, but she seemed to indicate that they were. So that kind of brings up the whole thing of like, what, we don't trust the mainstream media about what they tell us here domestically, but we're going to trust everything that we hear.
Yeah, that's the thing that pisses me off too. About like you're believing these reports coming out of Iran about, oh, you blew up a hospital, this is where the children were and stuff, and maybe that did happen. But my God, we're just believing it. They are known liars. They don't care. They want. I think that they want to bring about the end of the world because. Well,
like what I'm saying is like. But I asked somebody that lived in Iran about that very thing.
Yeah.
The answer I got back is much different. I mean, somebody that lived there for 15 years.
It's hard for me to disagree with her, because she's
I'm
there.
Not saying that
she was there.
And I may be putting words in her mouth, but I'm not saying that, she thinks they're benign. She doesn't. But at the same time, she does not want American ground troops. I thought for sure when I asked her, you lived in Iran, you lived under the oppressive regime, you saw how it was, but do you want ground? She said, absolutely not. She said, she should let Israel take care of it. Is what her ultimate response was.
So if they're trying to enrich uranium through those processes, and I guess they want nuclear power.
That would have to be their cover. I mean,
of course. And we know that that's not true because
traditional narrative in the narrative we're being sold.
Right, because I believe Marco Rubio when he said this was offered to them for free. Not only can you have this, we're going to provide it for you, and it'll be free. Okay,
but they don't trust us.
They don't trust us, but that's not what their goal is, Paul. They want a nuke. They want a nuke. They are tired of being the doorstep
100%
in their mind.
100%. I do think they want one.
Yeah.
And I think every country in the Middle East that doesn't have one is going to want one now. Is what I think.
Well,
because apparently, once you actually have a nuke, you can't be bombed.
Right. Well, I would say that maybe. So you're saying that some of the craziest people on the face of the planet, in terms of their hatred.
I mean, they very well. I mean, look, I'm not saying that if Iran had a nuclear bomb, they wouldn't use it. I'm not saying that I know that. I don't know that. But you look at some of these other countries. Is it Turkey? Turkey's not a nuclear country, but Turkey, is it Turkey now that's saying, like, hey, if we want a nuclear bomb, we'll just get Pakistan to give us one? Is that I think, is that what we're potentially looking
I don't
at?
know. I don't know. We need to go through that.
It.
We need to go through that on the show one day, like what all Middle Eastern countries have nuclear weapons.
Or is it Saudi Arabia? I don't know.
I don't know, but I can say that there are a few people.
Yeah, so Turkey does not have nuclear weapons. So I think I am thinking of that correctly.
Yeah. So I think anybody, including our friend who former Iranian, or I guess I don't know she's an American citizen now.
Yep.
But
Christian,
was
praise the Lord.
Born and raised there in Iran. Would she believe
We need to get her back on.
that, number one, Iran wants a nuclear weapon? Would she say yes or no to that? And then the second question I would say is, if the answer is yes, do they want a nuclear weapon as a deterrent? As all of these world powers have it, right? It's been almost 100 years since the last nuke was dropped.
Just think about it. I mean, if you're Iran and you're looking at North Korea, crazy country, whatever. Nobody's tackled North Korea because they have nuclear weapons, right? So it's like, once you get this, you are now, apparently this is now your key. You're going to have to the world now has to put up with you and your borders.
Yeah.
Until there's no more nuclear weapons, until we kill each other.
I don't know. But to my knowledge,
and I'm not
Kim
saying
Jong-un
I want that
not,
for Iran. I'm just trying to.
To my knowledge, Kim Jong-un is not sending money to Hezbollah or Hamas.
I get it.
Right. And saying, hey, go kill as many Jews as you can. Right. I just don't know. I mean, I don't think that Kim Jong-un is doing that. I don't believe that, Russia, Vladimir Putin has more nuclear weapons than anybody, right? Russia has more than us.
Right.
So they could blow Ukraine off of the map and just rebuild them, but they don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sitting here just trying to give him a bunch of credit.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, but Iran doesn't have the nuke.
Yeah.
So
it's just I have not heard of North Korea committing an October 7th style attack. And I think that Iran has proven through its proxies over and over and over again that they are untrustworthy, they are murderous, they are crazy people who want to bring about the end of the world. And a nuke in their hands, whether it be for deterrent or any other purposes, could bring the start of the nuclear war to end this planet. And
I'm going to just make a note here. All right, because I respect your opinion, obviously.
Oh, we disagree a lot on Israel, I know.
But we've now spent, I don't know what we spent, 10 minutes, 20 minutes or whatever on this, right? And so this is the issue. And I'm just speaking from a purely a purely selfish motivation here. as somebody who voted for President Trump 3 times, and as somebody who wants American families to do well and wants specifically Christians to be in a safe, protected country, the division that you're seeing, that, I mean, if it were up to me, I wish I could just heal it, you know.
Yeah.
But the war is only hurting, and it's really now, it's getting to the point where it's going to be beyond whatever the division on the right is with the what was apparently a very fragile coalition.
Yeah.
It's really now kind of getting beyond that, to the point where if the Democrats take control of the House, if the Democrats take control of the Senate, I'm just selfishly thinking about you and me, your family, my family, people who are in Trump's orbit that are going to, the weaponization of government going to be turned right back on. Basically, this path of going back after grandmas because you're mad Roe v. Wade got overturned, so you got to go put them in jail.
Yeah.
Closer to putting Christians in boxcars. And so, you know, we're now totally focused on the Middle East. People our age and younger that voted for Trump this is the same foreign policy. It's starting to feel like the same foreign policy that we've experienced our whole lives.
Yeah.
So maybe people older don't quite understand that. I don't know what and it makes it very difficult to cover the situation so far. We're only 30 days in, but it's a difficult thing to cover when, again, okay, war's over. Finally, the war's over. And then it's like, did the Iranian foreign relations guy or whoever it was that said, hey, yeah, the strait's open, and then we get these radio messages from people in the Iranian National Guard or the Iranian Republican Guard that are like, actually, no, that guy has no authority. Who even has authority over there?
I have no idea.
And so it's anyway.
I will.
I know you got to go here.
Yeah, and I would just say that if President Donald Trump was sitting across us in the other chair, number one, what an honor. That would be incredible.
Yeah, you tell me.
I don't think he's ever been to Jonesboro, Arkansas, but anyway,
probably not.
But I believe that he would tell us, yeah, I want this to be over. I think the roller coaster of all of this is pissing him off, and you've seen it. He wants this thing to be over. I truly believe that, because there are things domestically that we need to be focusing on, especially leading into these midterms. There's got to be a focus.
So that's got to be over.
On not letting.
Lindsey Graham was saying the other day that this will all be over by the end of the year.
Lindsey Graham is,
but you
crazy.
You understand if this, and I know it's crazy because it's like, well, we can't end a war because of political considerations. Well, hey, if you like the traditional American family and you want to preserve the traditional American family, you better hope it ends for political reasons.
Yeah.
Because if the Democrats get back in power, you are talking about. They are going to, and especially if they get back in power and none of the intel oligarchs have gone to prison, they have zero incentive not to go full-blown communist revolution on anyone who believes in the Bible. And it really will be that specific.
Yeah.
Do you believe in the Bible? Okay, well, you're now no longer a person in our society.
Paul,
they were doing where this is going.
They were monitoring people's Chase accounts to see who was buying from Bible stores. This has already happened. They've told us who they are.
Yes.
And we are squabbling amongst ourselves over here on the right, and that's fine. Like there needs to be contention about stuff because we're not monolith.
It's the only place you can have a debate.
Correct.
Within the Republican Party right now. It's the only place there's an actual debate.
But we have got to stop. What's the word? Excommunicating somebody, and just getting rid of this person. Now, if they go off the deep end, like I believe Candace Owens has gone off the deep end, then you're like, hey, we can't have anything to do with this. But I believe that there is room for the Megyn Kellys of the world who disagree with this Iranian war, and the Ben Shapiros of the world and they both are friends. They've gone at each other on social media, but I believe that both of those we want them both in the conservative movement. Now, I don't know what's crawled up Tucker's ass recently.
On that,
I agree with a lot of stuff
I do too.
Tucker says, but he's
I agree with you. Well, I disagreed with Tucker the other day. So he's been railing. He's been talking about dispensationalism and how it's not biblical. And I'm not a dispensationalist, so I would tend to agree with that. But then he did a show on the Antichrist and kind of intuited that that Trump could be the Antichrist. Well, there's.
See, that's
well,
crazy,
no,
man.
we're getting confused categories because if you know that dispensationalism is wrong, then this idea of like a one singular Antichrist is also wrong,
right?
Unless there's a new eschatological view that I'm not aware of between your pre-mill or your historic pre-mill, your dispensational pre-mill, your amillennial or your post-millennial. So I do take issue with some of the things Tucker says. At the same time, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And his audience isn't going anywhere, and they're still in this. Even if you try to divorce them, there's still people are not. Look, there is a Venn diagram.
Yeah, people are still listening to Candace Owens,
and people are still listening to Tucker, and people are still like they want to know differing opinions, and people have the ability to chew up the meat and spit out the bones.
Yeah.
Like we have the ability to do that and disagree with the things we disagree with and agree with the things that we do agree with.
Well, and respectfully to our support for Donald Trump, 3-time voter here as well. Like our support for Donald Trump, we have to admit the elephant in the room. He is the worst at people. If you disagree with him in any, like he tries to, you're totally gone from me. And I'm like, where is that deal maker? Pick up the phone and call Tucker Carlson, because I disagree so much with what Tucker has said. Now, I agree with a lot of what he said, but guys, we remember leading up to 2020 and certainly after, Tucker was our only voice.
Yep.
It felt like in the mainstream media, Tucker was us, man.
He exposed J6, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't.
It was like, and he was the one going after January 6th. He was one that was going after the Dominion voting systems, which we know had flaws there, or were at least suspect. He
had the balls to say that the United States blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, that Russia didn't blow up their own pipeline.
Tucker, there was a directive given at Fox News to keep Trump at arm's length. Okay, Tucker said no. And Tucker would absolutely be our voice with the conservatives, especially early on in Biden's administration there, where you couldn't support Donald Trump after January 6th. And I'm just like, I don't really think January 6th is that bad, I mean, call me stupid here, but I don't think it was really that bad, because I saw the Summer of Love in Seattle, and I saw the billions of dollars of destruction that these idiots did after the whole, criminal known as George Floyd with his 3 freaking funerals and his golden casket, kiss my ass. That I don't have anything to do with that mentality. And Tucker was our voice, it seemed like. And so I do disagree with a lot of what Tucker is saying recently, but I also don't believe the conservatives are better served by getting rid of these strong, powerful voices on the conservative side.
I tend to agree with you, but the elephant in the room is the new war, or military conflict. Some people don't even want to call it a war, which I guess maybe technically, I don't know.
Tucker's
but it's
siding with the Middle East on some stuff.
Well,
though,
no, I get it. Like some of
the
stuff he said. What did he say on the Muslims the other day that I disagreed with? I can't remember. I just remembered the whole dispensational thing and the Antichrist thing, which I was like, okay, well that we're confusing categories here. So I get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it. But I think at some point, it's like these people are not going away. They're going to be forces in this movement or another movement, in my opinion. And I know you got to go, brother. But anyway, thank you for the conversation.
Great to be on, as always.
It's fun to agree. It's fun to disagree too. So we'll hopefully see Rob tomorrow. We're going to reset here, take a quick commercial break. This is the Paul Harrell program. We can't do the program without you, so we appreciate you patronizing the sponsors of the show. We'll be back here in just a minute.
For centuries, light has been used to heal. Awaken the body with Red Vive.
Why is Red Vive different? What sets it apart? What sets us apart from the standard red light panels? This is a medical grade device, and what that means is the red light bulbs and the near infrared bulbs have very specific wavelengths. If you think about the wavelength as the medicine, the 635, the 670, the 810, the 850, those were specifically chosen because those are the most powerful effectors of the cells. So those specific wavelengths, when they get into our body, when they affect our tissue, they spike energy production, they help with nerve pain control, they increase stem cell counts. There's very specific mechanisms that those specific wavelengths work at, and that's the medicine. So if you think of, say, medicine as an Advil or a specific steroid or a blood pressure medication, the wavelength is the medication. The other part of that, whenever you take a medication, is dose. Right? So you have the medication. So if you take 1 milligram of Advil, and the average dose of an Advil is 200 milligrams to 800 milligrams, it's not going to work. That doesn't mean the medicine's bad. It just means you didn't take enough. Right? And so even if you have the right wavelengths, first you have to have the right medicine, and then you have to have the right dose. And to have the right dose, you have, in light therapy, you have to have enough energy. So you have to have a powerful bulb. The LED bulbs, or light emitting diodes, have a specific wavelength, and that wavelength is the medicine. And the wavelengths that have been studied and published on that are the most powerful in affecting healing and the changes that we want to see with our bodies and our health are the 635 wavelength, the 670, 810 nanometer wavelength, and 850 nanometer wavelength. Those are all going to affect the mitochondria, the cytochrome C oxidase, and affect those powerful long-term changes and affect that downstream pathways. And that's what you get with Red Vive devices. The highest efficacy, the best wavelengths, concentrated to help your health.
Behind every precious life, there was a choice. Behind every family moment, behind every special memory, there was a choice. A life of joy. A life that is beautifully and wonderfully made. At 7 Weeks Coffee, we are funding the pro-life movement, one cup at a time. Will you let your coffee serve a greater purpose?
The Paul Harrell Program.
Woo! All right, hey, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. Broadcasting live from the great state of Arkansas. It's the Paul Harrell Program. Want to thank my co-host, Rob Spencer. He had to get, on Mondays, he's got to get about 5:15, so he even stayed over for us. He's got appointments, got things to do, got places to be. So yeah, it was an interesting conversation about the conflict in the Middle East, something that is totally still in the news after Friday when we came on the program and we were celebrating that the strait was open, and then of course that immediately came into question, and then you guys like, well, did Israel continue to bomb Lebanon, or did that come first, or was it Iran? Bombing ships or threatening ships, Indian ships in the strait, or which came first, and it is just a total tar baby. That's one thing that I can tell you. The war is a tar baby, and just like the old bedtime stories between Brer Rabbit and the fox and all of that. I mean, that's what this is, and that's why I'm just going to continue whenever it comes up to say we've got to find an off-ramp, we got to find a way to end this, regardless of who you may make mad that didn't get everything that they wanted in this. I do think that the aversion to a ground war and putting thousands of troops in harm's way in order to take something like Cargill, knock on wood, please don't let this happen, or actually do a full ground invasion on a country the size of Western Europe, is not going to happen. So at this point, this is just, well, how at this point, it's like, well, how do we keep the strait open without a regime change? And who knows, maybe even the definition of what a regime change is gets changed. I don't know, but I know that people back home just paid taxes, and they're very, very some are upset. Refunds are better this year for some not so much for others. There's just a lot of work to do. We need the tariff checks. We need to get rid of the IRS. We need all of this. And I know. I tell you what. The other day, I was talking to some people in their 70s. Well, I heard through the grapevine. I didn't talk to them directly, but I was talking to somebody who said, "Hey, yeah, our friends in their 70s, they're not a fan of this conflict in the Middle East or this war in the Middle East." And their exact words were, and these are Fox News viewers. Man, it just seems like what came back was, man, it just seems like Benjamin Netanyahu twisted Trump's arm and got him involved in this, and now it's just not working out the way it needs to. Now, of course, this was a couple weeks ago, or this was as the strait was closed and gas prices were high and that sort of thing. But I thought that was, as somebody who doesn't watch Fox News, I thought that was an interesting data point. Could just be random, but when you've got boomers that are starting to say, "Hey, this is not ideal. This is not good." It is interesting, to say the least. And I'm just telling you that there is a chance that the midterms could go good. There's a chance. But every week that the news cycle is dominated by this, and it's dominated by, hey, we've got a deal. No, we don't have a deal. We have a deal. No, we don't have a deal. It just gets harder and harder because, again, voters don't have a great memory, but they've got a good enough memory to remember why Nikki Haley was not chosen as the nominee. Now, don't get me wrong. If Nikki Haley was the president right now, we would have ground troops. So that is not lost on me, okay? 100%. We would have ground troops by now. But I appreciate the healthy conversation with Rob. This is a tar baby, and something has got to give. Because, and I'm again speaking from a totally selfish point of view. If the coalition is not healed in some way, in some meaningful way, and again, you can make an argument that this really all started back when Elon Musk was kicked out of the White House in May. And then the Epstein files, and then it leads to this point. If the coalition is not, if it's not somehow mended in a meaningful way, your average American family is going to be targeted by the Democrats, by the progressives. The woke sex religion will come back in a huge way. The corporations will dust off all of their Target is going to dust off their rainbow-colored Tuck-It swimsuits, and that'll be the least of your worries. Target having trans swimsuits for little kids will be the least of our worries, and that's what's so frustrating about this is I'm looking ahead at how bad it could be, and it doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to live this way. It's time for a foreign policy that understands how important it is for average Americans to succeed. And right now, everything is Middle East. Again, for the 15th millionth time in my life. And I understand people who disagree with that, but people I talk, maybe I'm in a bubble. I mean, I talk to a lot of people that are my age because, hey, I'm 41 years old. And people they're not pleased with this. Now, on a totally different topic, I will tell you that I've had this, and maybe we'll talk about this with Eric tomorrow, but I've had this kind of gamed out system when it comes to the SAVE Act. How is the SAVE Act going to play out exactly? And I have a few steps that I've gone over with Eric ad nauseum about how this might work out. And it would be that John Thune is obviously not going to do anything with the SAVE Act. We are still waiting on Tulsi Gabbard to release her elections report that she gave to the president last summer. And so in my theory is that Trump can do this a couple of ways. He can wait on this Tulsi Gabbard, drop it. Hey, look, our elections are not secure. We've got foreign involvement. We've got election machines that are not secure. You can do all this. And then Trump can go back to the Senate and say, see, I told you it's that bad. And then John Thune says, okay, we'll get it through. Or Trump can go the executive order route. Trump can go to the executive order route, pass it, ban the machines, ban mail-in ballots. It goes to the courts. Then Trump can use all of the Tulsi Gabbard data on how our election was hacked in 2020, and he can use that as to why his executive order is necessary. We have him dead to rights. This is national security. We have to do this. So that's one way that this could go. Another way it could go, well, I guess let me just take that. That's one way this could go. So I actually was surprised that one of my crazy theories actually kind of it makes sense, I guess. I don't know if this is a good thing or not. It apparently kind of makes sense to John Solomon of Just the News, who, by the way, is once again reporting that we're going to have accountability when it comes to these deep state intel oligarchs. And Roger Stone and John Solomon went back and forth on X over the weekend. And Roger's just like, man, John, I mean, I hope this happens, but everything you reported that was going to happen in Trump's first term, having to do with accountability or arrests, didn't happen. And in theory, I love John Solomon's reporting. If I want all of this hopium, right? But in reality, to keep reading it and waiting for it to happen, it kind of is like, okay, am I really just a masochist? Do I really just love the pain of the hopium and then it never comes? But John Solomon's got sources within the FBI and within the government. So anyway, John Solomon says this. Dan Bongino. So Dan Bongino had John Solomon on his show the other day. Solomon made a prediction, which really mirrors my prediction. So, sorry. It was legitimately my prediction. I didn't, I came up with it on my own. The prediction is that Trump will soon unveil evidence that foreign powers meddled in the 2020 election, which will result in John Thune ultimately caving on the filibuster and the SAVE Act will get passed. Quote, I think Donald Trump is going to change the narrative in America. I think he's going to change some senators' minds. This is in line with what I have said, although Eric probably knows my prediction better than I know myself. And so tomorrow on the program, he can kind of let me know if this is kind of in line. It's kind of in line with what I was thinking. But that brings us to the fact that our elections are not secure, and people like Lindsey Graham don't support the SAVE Act. Let's hope. Businessman Republican Mark Lynch says this, Lindsey Graham doesn't support the SAVE Act. I support the SAVE Act, he says. Okay, well, so on that, I think we can safely say that it is time for Graham Watch, ladies and gentlemen.
Senator Lindsey Graham loves New Wars. This segment is called Graham Watch, and it's dedicated to him. see you, Lady G.
You Lady G. Yeah, Lady G.
All right, so for this edition of Graham Watch, we're going with Mark Lynch, his opponent in the South Carolina primary vote June 9th, by the way. Lindsey Graham doesn't support the SAVE Act. He says, I support the SAVE Act. Lindsey doesn't. Graham is Senate Budget Chair. Did you know this, that Graham is the Senate Budget Chair? That he could put the SAVE Act into a reconciliation tomorrow and ram it through the Senate, yet he won't. Why? Because he opposes Trump's agenda. He opposes President Trump's agenda on the SAVE Act. And yet, of course, he gets his endorsement, which is, par for the course. Trump just doesn't make good endorsements most of the time. But if you want to know about our elections and how, ridiculous they are, Libs of TikTok highlights a guy named Stephanie Fritsch. He's now the minority inspector of elections in Pennsylvania, in Waconsco Township, Pennsylvania. This is a real video.
Hello. My name is Stephanie Fritsch, and I'm going to be 100% blatantly honest about what's going on with me. The main thing is, I realize people say I look like a man, and also they realize that, they're saying that, I don't take care of myself and don't look like a girl.
Okay, that's all that we need. We don't need any more of that. So yeah, the minority inspector of elections in Pennsylvania Township, Wisconsin Co. No thanks. So yeah, federalize the elections, man. Actually, no. Can we just put in there that, can we do something to permanently make sure there's no voting machines and no mail-in ballots, and you got to have voter ID? Like, can we permanently do it to where nobody else can mess with these policies anymore? Again, in case the Democrats get back into control. Oh, by the way, if the Democrats do get back into control, you're never getting any of this stuff, and our elections are rigged for good. More on the Lindsey Graham, though. We're not done with Graham Watch. One thing that could sink Lindsey Graham by Kathleen Parker. Headline, Pushing the Iran War might be the only election risk for the South Carolina senator. The same thing, this is the same thing that goes for Republicans in general, by the way. Almost since becoming a U.S. Senator more than 2 decades ago, Lindsey Graham has suffered predictions of his imminent political demise. The timing usually coincides with each re-election bid, which thus far hasn't led to defeat. This year, as the Republican seeks his 5th term to represent South Carolina, the chorus of naysayers has been louder than usual, and dire prognostications have seemed more convincing. Graham had some opposition in the Republican primary slated June 9th that appeared promising to those who would prefer a new face. And anyway, it goes on to talk about Paul Dans. And then of course, they're going to slight they slight Mark Lynch because they're most afraid of him. But it says there is nevertheless some basis for the early declaration of Graham's possible exit. President Donald Trump's endorsement isn't what it once was, thanks to so many things. For one, there's the Iran war, which, given Graham's campaign to get Trump on board, may as well be called Graham's war. Then there are rising gas prices and Trump's posting and an AI-generated image of himself, as Jesus. The thing is here, I think Graham's war sticks. And again, this is Kathleen Parker. So, right, I know who we're talking about here. But Graham's war, and I also don't understand. I also understand what's going on here, just in terms of people want to criticize Trump. They want to pile on Trump because they want Trump to fail. I want Lindsey Graham to fail because if Lindsey Graham fails, President Trump has a greater chance of succeeding. Let me say that again. If Lindsey Graham fails, President Trump has a greater chance to actually succeed. The people of South Carolina need to send President Trump a message, but send the deep state a message, send the military-industrial complex a message, send the warmonger. They need to get a message that South Carolina is no longer a vassal state. And the people have had enough of Lindsey Graham, otherwise known as Lady G, for reasons that are apparently the worst kept secret in all of Washington, D.C. And it makes no sense that a guy like flimsy Lindsey Graham is representing one of the most conservative states in the Union, South Carolina, where the Civil War started. So, I'm over it, man. I'm absolutely over it, and that concludes this edition of Graham Watch. Actually, we'll go with this one because we're short on time.
Senator Lindsey Graham loves new wars. This segment is called Graham Watch, and it's dedicated to him. We see you, Lady G.
We see you, Lady G. We see you, brother. I mean, I'm sorry. Sister. Hey, you guys remember when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez made fun of Marco Rubio's speech in Europe, and she thought she knew something about cowboys? Remember this?
You are starting to see the ascent of the right, even in places like Munich. Marco Rubio's speech was a pure appeal to Western culture. My favorite part was when he said that American cowboys came from Spain.
I thought they came from Winnetou, but
I believe the Mexicans and descendants of African enslaved peoples would like to have a word.
So she was obviously mocked because that is where cowboys came from, because that's where Mexico culture came from, Spain. It's basic history. But somebody's been keeping track. A guy by the name of Cowboy Gospeler over on X thought there was something weird that was going on. Or he suspected the left was going to try to prop up Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Because, and I'll just say this, the reason they've done this is because she is, of course, going to run for president. Cowboy Gospeler says, after folks laughed at AOC for not knowing Vaquero history, I knew Wikipedia would alter their meaning to fit hers. So I took a screenshot, and they finally did rewrite it. Wikipedia removed Vaquero from the origins of the Vaquero tradition come from Spain. They took this out. The origins of the Vaquero tradition come from Spain. So we have this here. Arrival in the Americas during the 16th century, the conquistadors and other Spanish settlers brought their cattle-raising traditions, as well as both horses and domesticated cattle to the Americas, starting with their arrival in what is today Florida. The traditions of Spain were transformed by geographic. So you read that there, and then you go over here, and now it says, during the 16th century, the conquistadors and other Spanish settlers brought their cattle-raising traditions as well as those other horses and domesticated cattle to the Americas, starting with their arrival in what is today Florida. Among the earliest Spanish vaqueros to the Americas were the Spanish to Florida, who arrived with Ponce de Leon. Again, going back, the traditions of Spain were transformed by the geographic, environmental, and cultural circumstances of New Spain, which later became Mexico and later the southwestern United States. They also developed the culture of Western Latin America, developing the Gancho cowboys in Argentina, Chile, Guatemala, and Peru, in turn the land. Anyway, they are messing with the definition. They're messing with these definitions because they're trying to protect, and pun intended, circle the wagons, to protect Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Anyway, you can see that there. Kudos for Cowboy Gospeler for keeping track and understanding what the left is going to do. Now, if you don't want a President Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, then we have to admit that we have a lot of work to do between now and 2028. And it has to start with taking away the power of the Democrat Party and taking away the power of the communists within our own government and winnowing them to such a degree that they are incapable of using their power if they ever get back into office the way they have currently used it over the last 10 years. And this specifically has to do with the intel oligarchy and putting people like that in jail. But the forces are alive and well, my friends. The corporate government, the blurred line between corporations and government are alive and well. You see, there's this book called Camp of the Saints. It's titled Camp of the Saints. It is a book by Jean Raspail. Jean Raspail was a guy that became famous. He basically became part of the French-Canadian version of the Boy Scouts. And he went to Canada as a young man, and he hiked from Canada all the way to Louisiana, all the way to the Gulf of America. He hiked there, became famous. Can you imagine hiking as a boy from Canada to Louisiana? It's a very, very long trek. So he became famous, moderately famous, and he became an author, and he wrote, and he became fascinated with the rise and fall of cultures and peoples. And he thought to himself, man, it's crazy that these Indians used to have this thriving North American civilization, but then they went away and they diminished. And according to people that have written about Raspail and his feelings, he thought stuff like that was tragic. But that didn't mean that he didn't love his own culture, his own Western culture. As a matter of fact, he cherished French culture. But he started asking himself the question, if French culture or European culture ever went away the way so many Indian cultures and civilizations went away, how exactly would it happen? Obviously, looking around and seeing the superiority of the French culture and Western culture as basically the dominant force in the world. We'll just put Western civilization as the dominant force as the world. No one's going to conquer it by force. How would it happen? So he envisioned a world, taking this Camp of the Saints phrase out of the book of Revelation, and he envisioned a world where toxic empathy and virtue signaling essentially would require the government of France and the people of France to become so woke that they just let themselves become overrun by Indian foreigners who are on these frigates off of the coast of France that the entire world saw coming through news reports for months and months and months. What are we going to do with all these people? This entire civilization of people on these rickety old cruise ships and frigates and everything else. And it's the story of how the government is so woke that they cannot deal and defend their own borders, and they let themselves be they basically let themselves be conquered, and essentially they cannibalize themselves by just surrendering, which is a very French thing to do, by the way. So he wrote a book called The Camp of the Saints, and I've read it, and it's considered so offensive and counterban. Matter of fact, when I read it, I'm actually mad at. I'm very happy with Vauban books or Vauban books. They're the ones that have published this reprinting because it has to be translated, and it reads like it's been translated from French to English. I'm actually kind of mad with them because they put like probably 20 or 30 pages in the front of this book, explaining why the book is relevant from a literary point of view, and there's major spoilers in there. But they're literally in the book Camp of the Saints. They're saying like, hey, we know this is controversial, and let me tell you what people say about it. They say it's racist, or they say it's a gateway to white supremacy and all this other nonsense. Okay, and in explaining that before you even get to the actual book, there's some spoilers in there. And so I wish I hadn't read any of the apologize. I mean, it kind of is. I'm sorry. It's kind of apology, but I get it. Maybe you had to put that in there in order to get Amazon to go ahead. Well, Amazon's done. Amazon's done with this. R.N. McIntyre writing, Amazon is committed to the burning of your fine oak doors. If you've read the book Camp of the Saints, you know exactly what he's talking about. So Vauban Books puts out a statement. Amazon removes the Camp of the Saints, citing offensive content. On Friday, April 17th, the Amazon U.S. removed the paperback listing of our edition of Jean Rapsapel's The Camp of the Saints. At this writing, the book remains available for purchase in Kindle and audiobook formats. We have since been informed by Amazon that the book is in violation of the company's offensive content policy. Amazon has supplied no information as to which portions of the book are offensive, nor to whom. Our edition of the book was first listed for sale on Amazon in July of 2025. In the 8 months since, Amazon has sold roughly 20,000 paperback copies of it. I'm one of the people. I'm one of the 20,000. Its customers appear to have appreciated the novel, giving it an average rating of 4.8 stars at the time of this listing's deletion. The book has also been extensively reviewed in the American and international press. Its reviewers have been unanimous in their assessment of its abiding importance and relevance to contemporary debates. While we cannot say for certain Amazon has taken this extraordinary step, it may be no coincidence that this listing was removed one day after New York Magazine published a critical article on Vice President Vance that referenced the book. So J.D. Vance referenced the book, Camp of the Saints, and Amazon removes the book. We are this close to going right back to the mass censorship we saw in COVID. The corporations are ready to go. They have licked their wounds. They are ready to come for all of us. And every day we talk more about what's going on in the Middle East instead of what's going on here, the invasion, the very invasion that the book Camp of the Saints talks about. Every day that we go more down this road, we are signing our own destruction. We're signing our own death warrants, because when the left gets back in power, they are not pulling their punches. If you thought they weren't pulling their punches before, trust me, they were. There were still limits. They knew there were things they couldn't go, like the trans thing. Oh, they actually went too far with that. But there were things that they didn't go full mask off. They knew there were still slight limitations. I mean, they were crazy, but it wasn't like it's going to be total assault on us. And I know some of these young guys out there that don't have kids, some of you want it to happen because you just want to punish the Republicans for not doing what they said in the way that it needs to be done. But I have a wife, I have kids, and and by the way, that's just ridiculous. Like, we don't want bloodshed. We don't want violence. But I'm just telling you that every day that this goes on, I don't want the left to be in charge of this country. I don't. And we've got to get our act together. That's my message. Now, you can disagree, and again, let me be a bulimic. Let me be a black pill bulimic. I know the Lord is in control. I know God is in control, and I know ultimately everything is going to be okay for those who are found in Christ Jesus. But just so you know, touching my screen right here, that's what I'm doing here. This stuff is coming roaring back. The censorship, all of it. Thoughts, ideas, the modern day blasphemy laws, it's all coming back. It's not a question of whether or not you have blasphemy laws, it's which blasphemy laws you do. And apparently, to buy a book on Amazon called The Camp of the Saints that talks about how France is overrun and their feckless woke leaders will not actually defend themselves from third worlders, tells you everything you need to know about what's waiting for us if this nonsense continues. Speaking of that, over in Great Britain, which is essentially a conquered country. It's been conquered by Muslims. There is a political party over there called Restore Britain. They say, join us. It's a political party. Restore Britain is a political party for those who believe that our nation has been hollowed out by weak leadership, broken institutions, and a political class that no longer serves the people. So this is a perfect segue from Camp of the Saints to here, because it's a real-life example about how Europe's feckless wokeism has allowed their country to be totally taken over, to where the supposed head of the Church of England recognizes Ramadan but doesn't come out and make a declaration about the resurrection of Jesus Christ. By the way, this is genius marketing. I'm not the one that has come up with that, but this is Restore Britain's marketing. It just says Restore Britain, and it's a picture. It's just a picture of an old stone wall in the middle of an English field, reminiscent of Morgan Freeman and Kevin Costner and in my country we talk to our women. We do not drug them with plants. Which is kind of ironic considering he was Moorish. Something to think about. What do we got here? What else do we have? Okay, yeah. So last thing I'll leave you on is this. This is really funny. There is a a pagan movie coming out, a hedonistic movie. Whatever. It's like The Purge, only with sex, and it's called One Night Only. And it's a 2026 film. It's an upcoming American romantic comedy. The film, it says that two strangers try to find love on the one night a year when premarital sex is legal. So it's some sort of weird dystopian, the Christian nationalists are going to take over now only one day a year. Can we have premarital sex? It's basically a leftist horror movie for them, to kind of build on my previous point. Somebody named Bendel Weary discussing the film. They write, the first teaser for One Night Only was shown at CinemaCon. The film follows two people trying to find love in a world where premarital sex is only legal for one day. On the right, our horror movies have to do with civilization collapsing, zombie apocalypse, your family, your people, your nation, all destroyed by mass zombie invasion. Left-wing horror movies, you can't be a sexual degenerate most of the time. That's their version. Folks, that's all the time that I have for this edition of the Paul Harrell program. I will see you back here tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have a full deck here. And shout out to our sponsors, Red Vive Health, New Horizon Real Estate, Gateway Sight and Sound, 7 Weeks Coffee, Sherrod Chiropractic. We'll see you tomorrow.